The sun glinted off the freshly waxed hover truck as Marcus backed it carefully into the driveway of their new home in Meadow Ridge Estates. It was the kind of neighborhood that prided itself on perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, and a set of community rules set by the all-powerful HOA. For most newcomers, that meant living under the thumb of a group of clipboard-wielding suburban tyrants. But Marcus and his wife Alara weren't most people. As Marcus unloaded boxes from the truck, Alara stepped out from the passenger side. Dressed in civilian attire, she still carried herself with a rigid posture and a commanding presence. Eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the cul-de-sac like a tactical officer assessing a battlefield. She didn't miss the twitch of a curtain across the street or the metallic glint of a high-powered zoom lens hidden behind the begonias next door. Meadow Ridge was watching. Karen Wilkins, HOA president and unofficial neighborhood gatekeeper, stood behind her pristine white fence, lips pursed tightly. She wore a wide-brimmed hat, designer sunglasses, and a floral blouse that tried a little too hard to look effortless. As Alara walked past with a crate of kitchen supplies, Karen's voice pierced the morning calm like a laser beam, you know? She said loudly, "Our bylaws require an application before any cohabitant moves into a residence, especially unregistered ones." Alara paused, but didn't look up. "We're owners," she said flatly. "Paperwork was filed a week ago." Karen narrowed her eyes. "Yes, Marcus filed the papers. You, on the other hand, don't seem to be listed as a resident. It's a violation." Marcus sighed as he approached Karen. "Please, we just moved in yesterday. We haven't had time to update everything." "Well, around here we follow rules," she snapped. "The HOA exists to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. And integrity means transparency. I don't like surprises." Alara's lips twitched faintly, but she said nothing. Marcus knew that expression. It was the look she gave enemy diplomats right before negotiations broke down in orbital cannons. Came online. The rest of the day continued under Kieran's watchful gaze. Every trip to the garage, every piece of furniture unloaded, every glance toward the sky, she recorded it all on her tablet, occasionally muttering things like non-regulation, antenna size, or unauthorized exterior fixtures. By the evening, Marcus and Alara were unpacking in silence when a strange hum vibrated through the house. Alara paused, tilting her head toward the ceiling. The lights flickered for a fraction of a second. "EMP drone," she muttered. "In the suburbs?" Marcus asked, voice low. "Passive surveillance," she replied. "Cloaked, not military issue. But someone's watching us beyond Karen's paranoia." They didn't need to say it out loud. It wasn't a coincidence. Alara had returned just days ago from a 6-year classified mission off-world, working in disputed territories between Earth's intergalactic defense force and unknown extraterrestrial species. She had seen more wars than most soldiers did in a lifetime. And though officially retired, her presence carried weight and risk. Later, that night, Karen stood in her kitchen reviewing footage from her drone surveillance setup. When she zoomed in on a crate Alara had carried, something strange caught her eye. Etched symbols glowing faintly, reacting to infrared light. Glyphs not found in any Earth database. She froze. Her breathing became shallow. Something stirred. In her memory, something buried deep, hidden behind years of routine and denial. With shaking fingers, she picked up her phone and dialed. "Yes, I need to report suspicious activity. Possibly weapons. Yes, right here in Meadow Ridge." Across the street, Alara watched the shadows shift. Her instincts had been right. Something more than HOA politics was in play. This neighborhood wasn't just about trimmed hedges and noise. Ordinances. It was a trap. And she had just stepped into it. By the next morning, the atmosphere in Meadow Ridge Estates had grown colder, denser like the air before a storm. Marcus sensed it as he stepped outside to grab the morning package, only to find a neon orange HOA violation slip taped to their front door. Unauthorized exterior technology, Section 14.7, in bold letters. The violation cited a non-conforming energy conduit that, in truth, was just the solar relay cable peeking from the edge of their roof. It had passed Earth-Mars compliance standards. But Karen clearly wasn't operating by interplanetary rules. Ilara was already awake. Sitting in the kitchen with her back straight and a small tactical tablet on the table. It looked like a tablet, but Marcus knew it was military-grade int, linked with orbital data, ambient energy fields, and biometric surveillance feeds. She was scanning local patterns, monitoring nearby frequencies. "They're running a layered scan on our home every 12 minutes, she said calmly. "That's not neighborhood watch tech. You think it's coming from Karen?" Marcus asked. Ilara shook her head. "She's too petty, too loud. Someone else is using her as a lens." An hour later, they found a notice shoved into their mailbox. A summons to appear before the HOA review board regarding multiple structural and security violations. It was signed by Karen and the rest of the board, who seemed to materialize out of thin air since their move. Marcus clenched his jaw, but Ilara simply nodded. "We'll go," she said. "And let's see what they're really after." The meeting was held that afternoon in the community clubhouse, a polished, sterile structure that smelled of lemon cleaner and artificial comfort. Ilara and Marcus entered quietly. Karen sat at the head of a long plastic table, flanked by 2 board members, whose names they hadn't learned yet. A third chair remained empty, its label smudged but reading proxy, clearance required. "We are here to discuss a series of disturbances," Karen began in a performative tone. "Unreported cohabitation, unauthorized exterior devices, and," she paused for effect, "what appears to be military-grade cargo equipment visible during your unloading process. Care to explain that, Mrs. Voss?" Ilara tilted her head slightly. "Commander Voss." Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" "Earned that title off-world. I prefer it to Mrs. A." Silence settled like a heavy fog. One of the board members leaned forward, clearly nervous. "You were deployed in the Alpha Centauri defense loop, weren't you?" Sharn shot him a glare, but he avoided her eyes. Ilara didn't answer, instead reaching into her jacket and pulling out her identification case. She laid it flat on the table and opened it. A smooth metal surface gleamed faintly before activating, casting a low hum into the room as the Federation's holographic seal rotated in the air above it. Karen's mouth dropped open. One of the other board members recoiled slightly. "This," Ilara said, "grants me full planetary clearance to transport and secure high-level classified materials, including within civilian jurisdictions, provided there is no interference with native governance." Marcus didn't say a word. He just watched Karen's expression shift from righteous fury to dawning dread. Her eyes remained locked on the ID, something flickering inside them. It was more than fear, something deeper. Recognition. Karen slowly stood. I need a moment." She staggered backward, nearly knocking over her chair, and exited the room without another word. The remaining board members stared at each other, visibly shaken. Ilara turned to Marcus, her voice low. "It wasn't just her, the board. They've been compromised. Trained or programmed to monitor post-mission operatives like me," Marcus whispered. "This HOA is a front." "Not all of it," she replied, "but enough." Outside the clubhouse, Karen gripped the edge of the building for support. Her vision swam. Flashes of metal corridors, symbols she couldn't read, voices not entirely human. She shook her head, trying to banish the images, but they clawed back. The sight of that ID had unlocked something long buried, and someone somewhere was going to know it had been triggered. Karen didn't return to the meeting. She vanished into her house like a ghost, swallowed by the perfect symmetry of Meadow Ridge. But her absence did little to calm the storm she had set in motion. That night, the stillness of the neighborhood felt artificial. It's controlled like a simulation, desperately trying to mimic normalcy. Even the cicadas had gone quiet. Marcus tried to sleep, but the tension in the air coiled tight around his chest. Downstairs, Ilara stood by the back window, eyes reflecting the faint blue glow of a hovering drone parked silently above the cul-de-sac. It wasn't HOA tech, didn't belong to any local agency either. She could tell by the triangular propulsion grid blinking in subtle Morse deep space, comes pattern designed to avoid civilian detection. She tapped the side of her neck, activating the neural interface embedded just beneath the skin. Within seconds, her contact line to command pulsed to life. but the signal was jammed. Not blocked entirely, just distorted. Like someone wanted to delay her message long enough for something else to happen. "They're on the ground," she said, almost to herself. Marcus stepped behind her. "You think this was about you all along?" She nodded. "My return, my presence." It triggered a protocol. Someone's been waiting for Federation personnel to re-enter civilian zones, and now I'm a confirmed variable. They didn't have to wait long to see the next move. At 3:17 a.m., bright white lights washed over the street as two black SUVs without any logos rolled up in front of the house. Not local law enforcement, not federal, something in between, worse, actually. Alara opened the door before they knocked. She was calm, collected, her ID once again in her hand. 3 figures stepped out, all dressed in crisp gray suits and black gloves. Their faces were pale, nearly featureless, with expressions molded more from protocol than personality. "Alara." "Voss?" the one in the center asked. His voice carried the weight of artificial authority. "We're here on behalf of the United Earth Security Council. We need to ask you a few questions about your last tour on Epsilon Theta 6. That mission is sealed under Intergalactic Treaty 301C, Alara replied. "Only sector-level clearance can request debriefing. You don't have it." The man didn't blink. "Your presence here violates containment orders." "No," she said, eyes narrowing. "My reassignment here was pre-approved by the Federation's Civilian Reintegration Program. You're the ones out of jurisdiction." For a moment, silence thickened between them. Then he said quietly, "You triggered Karen." Marcus stepped forward. "What the hell does that mean?" The man turned toward him. "She was part of a behavioral control trial. Volunteers recruited after the Arcadia incident. Their memories were wiped, their minds reset. But they were placed in key civilian oversight positions, HOA boards, school boards, zoning commissions, quiet observation posts. And you never told them?" Marcus snapped. "They didn't need to know," the agent said coldly. "Until now." Alara raised her voice. "You buried agents into civilian life to watch for returning personnel? That's a violation of the Earth Federation Accord." "And yet," he said, leaning in, "here you are." That's when Karen reappeared. She came walking down the street barefoot in her nightgown. Her eyes wide and unfocused, her movements stiff. She stopped in front of the SUV, her gaze fixed on Alara. "I remember now," she whispered. "The station, the voices, the light. You were there. You pulled me out of that lab." Alara's expression softened for a moment. "Yes, I did." Karen suddenly clutched her head and screamed. The lights on the SUV flickered. The drones overhead twitched violently in the air, emitting static bursts. The agents drew weapons, but Alara stepped between them and Karen. "She's unstable," Alara said. "You let her memory reconstruct too fast." "She's not just unstable," the agent replied. "She's a beacon." Alara's heart dropped. She knew what that meant. Somewhere, far above Earth, something else had heard the signal. Something not human. And it was already on its way. The sun rose over Meadow Ridge Estates, casting a golden hue over neat lawns and symmetrical rooftops. But there was nothing peaceful about the morning. Beneath the HOA clubhouse, beneath the very heart of this suburban, Illusion Alara and Marcus stood in front of a locked steel hatch, cleverly disguised beneath a tile floor. With Karen's reactivated memories, she had led them here, her steps uncertain, her mind teetering between clarity and collapse. Alara entered a coded sequence on a small embedded panel. The lock responded with a low hum, lights flickering green, and the hatch creaked open. A narrow, spiraled staircase led down into darkness. As they descended, Marcus held a small pulse lantern, its soft blue glow revealing sleek alloy walls that didn't match any civilian construction. Federation tech. Decades ahead of Earth's mainstream development, the facility below stretched far wider than expected, row after row of servers, databanks, and surveillance arrays lining the walls. Screens flickered with live feeds from neighborhood, homes, streets, and even personal devices. Names scrolled across the monitors, residents of Meadow Ridge and other neighborhoods across the country. Some flagged with red markers, others tagged observation, Class BX, Karen stared blankly. At one terminal, they've been tracking everyone, even the kids. Marcus walked over to a large, wall-mounted screen showing a holographic model of the Earth, dotted with blinking indicators. This isn't just about Alara, he muttered. They've built a global net. Alara moved to a central console and plugged in her Federation clearance key. Instantly, the system's encryption began to fall. She navigated through the layers of code like muscle memory, her hands moving faster than thought. What she found chilled her more than anything she had faced in space. This is a dormant sleeper grid, she said. There are thousands of Karen-like agents across Earth, all embedded in communities, all programmed to identify and respond to post-service operatives like me. Marcus frowned. What happens when they're triggered? They become transmitters, Alara replied. They send a signal, a homing beacon. It's not just to Earth security agencies, something else is listening. A sudden red alert blinked. On the console, the beacon had been activated 2 hours ago. The deep space response had already been dispatched. The trajectory appeared on the map, a vessel cloaked and fast, en route from the outer rim of soul space. ETA, 47 minutes. Karen sank to her knees, whispering fragmented memories, her mind flickering between personalities. They told me I was helping. They said I was part of the recovery. I didn't know. Alara knelt beside her. They used you, just like they used everyone else. But now we can stop them. She turned to Marcus. Help me initiate the purge. If we wipe this node, we might slow their access. We'll burn the eyes out of this grid. They worked quickly. Lara's fingers danced over the keyboard, overriding protocols and inserting virus subroutines. Sparks flew as systems shut down one by one. Surveillance feeds vanished, replaced by static. Emergency backup drives ignited and controlled overloads. But just as she reached the final step, the console locked with a sudden encryption barrier. Voice echoed from the speakers, calm, detached, and synthetic. Countermeasures active. Infiltration detected. External entity en route. Defensive measures initializing. The lights dimmed, replaced by a pulsing red glow. The building above shook slightly, and the air pressure dropped. Outside, across the neighborhood, metallic drones hidden within lampposts and mailboxes began to unfold like spiders waking from hibernation. We're too late, Lara whispered. Marcus gritted his teeth. Then we fight. She looked at him, then nodded. Get the weapons cache. As Marcus ran for the exit, Karen reached out and gripped Alara's hand. Her eyes, though strained and teary, were clear. I want to make this right. Tell me what to do. Alara helped her to her feet. Then follow my lead. We've got 45 minutes before something from the dark side of the stars lands right in our backyard. Above them, the skies began to tremble. The wind shifted just before it happened. An unnatural stillness rolling through the neighborhood. The kind that made birds disappear and dogs whimper behind locked doors. Alara stood at the center of the cul-de-sac, suited up in her old Federation recon armor, its iridescent plating humming quietly as it synced to her biometrics. The air vibrated around her. Behind her, Marcus emerged from the garage carrying 2 energy rifles disguised until now as antique gardening tools. Around them, Meadow Ridge was waking up, but not in the way it usually did. Homeowners stumbled onto their porches, phones dead, electronics shorted out, cars refusing to start. A few of the residents screamed when their decorative mailboxes cracked open, revealing spider-like drones that sprang to life and began scanning everything in sight. The sky above shimmered as a cloaked vessel descended slowly, its outline barely visible through atmospheric distortion. This wasn't a craft made for diplomacy or observation. It was a retrieval unit. Zone integrity breached. A metallic voice echoed across the neighborhood. Identify and surrender classified personnel. Karen stepped forward, her face pale but steady. Nightgown had been replaced with a hastily pieced-together tactical vest scavenged from the HOA, Clubhouse's hidden arsenal around her waist. Was a pulse scrambler device meant to confuse cloaked AI. They're going to extract you, she said to Alara, and they'll wipe all of us afterward. Not if we blind them first, Alara replied. The Federation cache Marcus had uncovered was more than a stash of weapons. It was a full emergency field node originally installed in case any off-world tech contaminated Earth's environment. Ilara had repurposed it. She knelt beside the glowing triangular device in the driveway and initiated the override protocol. All over Meadow Ridge. More drones activated, some crawling from irrigation systems, others unfolding from beneath cars. Instead of attacking, they hovered silently in a triangular formation. They'd been reprogrammed. The alien ship above them pulsed with a strange sound, like a choir of broken glass, and then began to descend faster. 3 beams of light shot down, aiming directly for Ilara now. She shouted. Karen slammed the scrambler into the ground. A wave of distortion rippled across the neighborhood, scrambling sensor signals. At the same time, the reprogrammed drones launched themselves into the air, crashing into the ship's descending beams with explosive bursts.
Ow.
The first 2 were neutralized. The third beam managed to lock onto Ilara's position, pulling her off the ground. Marcus ran, leaped, and grabbed her hand. With his other hand, he hurled a microplasma grenade at the ship's underbelly.